Well, our reporter Tig Enright joins us now from London for the latest. Tig, good to see you. So Boris Johnson is the first sitting Prime Minister to be fined for breaking the law. Rishi Sunak, the first Chancellor to be fined. Now, they've both previously denied to Parliament that they attended any parties. Are their positions now untenable?
Well, we've not actually heard from either of them as of yet, but I think all indications are that Prime Minister Boris Johnson has no intention of resigning or going easily. He won't be following those calls from opposition leaders and leaders of the UK nations to do so. And arguably, he's in a stronger position now than he was earlier this year when this scandal reached its climax. Firstly, because the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, as you mentioned there, he was then seen as the primary challenger to Boris Johnson. Now he's been shown to be a lawbreaker too, and he's been battling his own separate political problems because of the tax status of his very, very wealthy wife. So the threat from him has been neutralised. That leaves it next of all to Conservative MPs to potentially stick the knife in. Many of them expressed truly heartfelt outrage at the scandal of Downing Street lockdown parties when the scandal broke a few months ago. But now even Boris Johnson's worst critics within the party, the leader of the party in Scotland, Douglas Ross, who first called on him to resign, has said that now, because of the war in Ukraine, is not a time for a change in leadership, even though some critics have pointed out that Britain during World War II did replace Neville Chamberlain with Winston Churchill as Prime Minister. But the one weakness in Boris Johnson's position is that there could be a drip-drip effect going on here. This is just one fine for one party. We know he's suspected of being at other parties, so there could be yet more fines to come, and that could escalate the pressure upon him.
OK, so Tig, you mentioned there that there's no intention to resign just yet. But let's talk about these local elections that are coming up in May. Many in the Conservative Party, of course, fear a fallout from the so-called Partygate scandal. So how important do you think voters consider these local elections to be?
Well, they're very important, and certainly they're a barometer of voter opinion. And of course, while local elections don't influence government per se, they're effectively an opinion poll ahead of the next general election, which some people think there's preparations for it to take place next year. A few weeks ago, a poll of voters here suggested that a majority wanted Boris Johnson to resign if he was indeed fined for these parties. Now that has indeed happened. Now we're heading into these elections in a few weeks' time, which if nothing changes, the Conservative Party will have been shown to be sitting on their hands with a law-breaking Prime Minister at the helm. And there will be inevitably a fresh wave of storytelling, contrast between what people were doing at all those moments in their personal lives during lockdown, perhaps not seeing loved ones who were dying in hospital at a time when Boris Johnson and his officials were having parties in Downing Street. The Brexit wave of support which brought Boris Johnson to power, which won him the biggest majority that his party has known in a generation, is clearly over. Now he's dealing with a cost of living crisis of historic proportions and, of course, an historic scandal of law-breaking at the very heart of government. But cast your mind forward to a few weeks' time, and even if those local election results are bad, nobody expects the war in Ukraine to end any time soon. So the same arguments will prevail then, that perhaps now is not the time for a change in leadership. Mariam?